I'm keeping a distance because I haven't been feeling too great. I don't want to share my germs up close, so I'm gonna be here. And we're gonna do some work on the eagles, and Danny's gonna help us with that when we get to that point. But it is 7 o'clock, so if we could call the meeting to order, and how about Mr. Supervisor? Hi, Karen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
We have 4 members who are not present with us tonight. One potential zooming in, but not right now. So Danny's going to keep us aware of that. But welcome, happy New Year, everybody. Hope you enjoyed the holidays. Housekeeping items, the exits. Oh, you're all familiar with them. We've all been here before, and the restrooms. And recognize Village Trustee Jackie Main and Village Administrator Brian Anderson. Welcome. Thank you for joining us. Anyone on Zoom? No. Okay. All right. If you would please take a look at the minutes you have in front of you from December 14th. Anybody have suggestions, corrections, additions? Okay, then the minutes as presented will be accepted from December 14th, 2022. With that, under committee organization, New York State Open Meetings Law, we've been complying with that. Everything that we're going to look at tonight in terms of work that is done or that we need your suggestions or consensus on has been put out on the website. And those records remain available. There's nothing particularly new to update in your notebook. Nothing that I brought along here tonight. Everything that you've received that we're going to look at tonight has been given to you and shared electronically. And the easels are going to be like worksheets for us when we get to that point. I would point out that under communications, we have been given an extension by the town board for the report now due on March 1st. And they have extended our meeting schedule into the month of February. That adds 2 more meetings. They are February 8th and February 23rd. I know that the 23rd is in the week of the school break. So if you have plans to not be available that night, please let me know, because that would be the night that we're going to button everything down, because the report's due like in 5 days on March 1st.
Excuse me, maybe I misunderstood, but I thought you said 23rd. I believe it's
22nd.
That would be a Wednesday.
22nd.
23rd is a Thursday.
Okay, so February 8th and February 22nd.
Yeah.
Again, that is the week of the school break. And if anyone knows you're not going to be here, please pay attention to what comes to you electronically, because the report will come out to you as a draft electronically prior to that meeting. And we're going to need to make sure that whoever is here and present on the 22nd of February, that we are able to finalize this report. So the most I would be doing to it is some edits, typos, that kind of thing. But at that point in time, there should be no reason for any substantial changes, because we would have done all of that by the 8th of February. Okay, so if we take a look at item number 7, which is the committee charge. Under the first charge from the town board, you have chapter 2, chapter 3. Chapter 2 is in process with me. It was not yet in the format that I sent to you because I need some IT assistance from Danny to import some charts and figures from documents that he looked at and already considered that I want to get inside of that narrative for you. So that's well on its way. That is the chapter that deals with the jurisdictions for the delivery of fire service and what we have in terms of village, fire protection district and district. Chapter 3, that is a draft. And there's a listing in there of all the figures. Most of them you have seen. Some of them are still under revision with amended fire department. My understanding is they will be submitted by email either tonight or tomorrow, so that as soon as I have them, I'll push them out to you so that you can see those. So charge number 1 is pretty well complete. There still might be some tweaks to information and graphics, but the basic information is complete. And the same is true for task number 2. That's the needs assessment. And you have the draft of chapter 4. It's in 3 pieces that have come out to you. One is titled chapter 4, one is titled natural features, and one is titled target features. You also have seen tables and graphics go with that narrative. The only ones that are not yet available and should be coming email tonight, tomorrow, are the tables for the department interface with target features and the natural features, indicating what equipment goes to which feature response when there's an emergency associated with it, and some other information about emergency response that you have requested from the departments. So again, as soon as that comes in, it's going to go back out to you. So what I would like to do tonight is basically say to you that charges 1 and 2 on the resolution from the town board are completed in essence of information, which puts us into the 3rd charge, which we're going to take a look at, and that's where you see task number 3 bullet, and in red it says continue resource considerations, which we started last time. That's the focus of this meeting and the next meeting, to get to the resource considerations. You'll see coming from me a chapter on that as we conclude our work here tonight. You'll see a chapter coming on trends and projections within the fire service that's coming from various reports and county activity, close by county activity, like the Genesee County report, the Ontario County report. And then it'll work into modeling, and we will even get into some modeling discussion tonight. So if we dive into this task 3, and you bear with me a little bit, I want to recap what we've done, what we did in 2022, and give you a platform to now move into the resource considerations that will drive the discussion about modeling. You know what the resources are, you know what the needs are. Now let's take a look at what you want in resources, where there still are some opportunities to improve the resources to get where you want to be. So moving on to task number 3, or the 3rd piece of the chart to us, this report to the town board will be on the current capacity to deliver fire protection within the town. So tonight's meeting to focus on our current capability to deliver the fire protection. We are going to reframe our information and data, focus on meeting the community expectations, and sustain appropriate services. That's chapter 5. We recognize the overall community expectation is simple, straightforward, as it was expressed by the taxpayer small group representatives at our last meeting. Here's what they said, and it is in the minutes. When you call 911 for help, you expect qualified responders and equipment will respond in a timely manner. We talked about that. We looked at it, and we had agreed that that was very simply the community expectation when someone places a call to 911. Toward that end, we define information about staffing is a topic, equipment and apparatus is a topic, and financial capability is a topic. So if we start by looking at staffing, we know membership numbers are trending down. That's been in one of the graphics. We know that recruitment numbers do not equate to retention of those recruited. We've seen that in the graphics. We recognize the department vantage points that a consistent, reliable response from the membership is somewhat predictable across the 5 call types, with the average response below what the departments refer to as an effective manpower response recommended by NFPA and the departments. In all cases, the percentage of active member response to any of the 5 call types is below 22% as calculated by the department. And sometimes it's as low as 2% or 1 point something percent. The responder turnout can be attributed to a number of factors, but training is an objective measurement in having an appropriate number of responders to these calls. So when we look at people who are trained for specific call types, and if they respond to those call types, we can get some data, but the data about numbers of responders comes from the number of total active members and the total number going to these calls. As we know from department data, calls for service are trending in upward direction. Mendon's increase in call volume is not as dramatic as Honey Falls department increase in call volumes, but both are trending upward. Given that call volumes are rising and the number of active members continues in a downward trend, department leadership recognizes the need to bridge their staffing gaps to fulfill the community expectation. They have focused on critical incident planning and strive to attain additional staff with conventional mutual aid. Mendon is using, excuse me, Mendon's numbers show that they give less mutual aid than received. If we factor in the mutual assistance, which is the automatic dispatch, that's planned. It's not temporary like mutual aid. Honey Falls numbers are increasing in mutual assistance, while Mendon's numbers have a significant increase in 2022 in the use of mutual assistance. Both departments show total assistance given and received is trending upward. The departments that Honey Falls and Mendon utilize for automatic busted by the circumstances. An inventory note from our last meeting is that from the elected officials representatives, and they noted, and I'm putting together some information here, but this is a quote. Another significant draw on manpower are EMS calls. Ambulances are taking a significant amount of time to arrive to a call. And there is the concern of how much time the call takes a volunteer away from home and things they may have to do. Now, both departments respond to EMS calls, and we have their data about EMS calls in terms of numbers of calls and the response from the individual department about just department response to EMS calls. Our charge does not specifically relate to ambulance service, but since both departments respond to EMS calls, EMS concerns may be relevant as the committee considers modeling for sustainable fire protection services. So that's what we have on staffing. In terms of apparatus and equipment is another topic. You decided at meetings that you believe that we have equipment that is suitable and appropriate for our needs, both target and natural features. And we'll learn more about that specifically when those tables are available. You want apparatus to be predictable and practical for its life expectancy in both departments. There's maintenance driven by testing requirements in addition to normal use. And the expendables are considered in annual budgets and on replacement budgets for cyclical replacement. Maintenance and replacement requires financial capability. Both the village and the district have annual budget appropriations associated for these costs. Both village and district have capital reserve accounts. We've seen that information. And aside from the capital reserve funds, nothing has been shared about capital budgets for plans on apparatus replacement. In terms of financial capacity, the third topic, you know that real property tax is the major revenue source for both jurisdictions. You've seen the rate per thousand from both the district and the village and the fire protection district, as it is contained and described across a number of years for all three jurisdictions. You've seen indebtedness calculation based on total taxable value for the district, the village, and the town of Minden, and all debt considered for the fire departments. You've seen grant availability with its uses and its sources for both departments. You've seen information on real property assets for the village, the district, and the Minden Fire Department. And you've seen that the Office of the State Controller is given a rating, a score to both the village and the town of Minden as no designation for any fiscal stress. So the fiscal health of the town and the village is looked at and evaluated by the state office. Office of the State Controller. It is a good report. So as you think about the resources you have, you know what they are, and we look at considering them for moving forward, hopefully what you just heard incorporates and refocuses, reframes that information in a way that will be useful for you when we get to modeling. So we're going to see some of that up here in a workshop mode, but I just want to make sure that you have a basic understanding and a basic, agreement that these are the kind of things that are grabbing your attention. Is that a fair assessment? Am I on the right track with looking at what you have and reframing it into what we should be considering?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay, then I will take this, because I've, written it down so I can refer to it. And I will use that to narrate a draft for chapter 5. So we'll take a look at that when it comes in. Now we're going to take that information and we're going to add administration as a 4th topic. And we're going to continue on in a workshop. So with your consensus on this information is representing the major points of resource considerations, then hopefully it's accurately expressed the current capability of the departments in the 3 jurisdictions on how we deliver fire protection. We'll move on and capture your thoughts and suggestions for improvement opportunities in each of these areas. And we'll also consider fire service administration. So the EASA boards are going to list those 4 topics. Start here. That should say staffing. Yay. So each topic will be populated with some points that we've already discussed, but they only intend to aid your discussion. If a point is valid, I'd like you to confirm it. I would like you to add additional topics under here. And then what you add, Danny will add to this list. And I'm going to ask you to fully define what it is you think we need, so that then we can take a look at these in an aggregate fashion and start some modeling. When we leave this meeting, your input will be cross-referenced with authority options. And you know those from a graphic that you have previously seen in a report. I'm just going to put it here because I don't know what you can see, but this is from the Office of the State Controller. It's called Fire Protection in New York State. How is it provided in your community? There's a chart that everybody liked, and it talks about the authorities as a city, a village, a town outside of villages for fire districts, a town outside of villages for fire protection districts, and then a joint fire district, which would be a village town district. So though what we're going to look at in modeling is to cross-reference staffing, equipment and apparatus, financial considerations, financial capacity, and then administration with village authority, fire district authority, fire protection district, and joint district, so that we can overlay these on those authorities to see if those gain improvements or opportunities or advancement in the areas of your concern. And when we do that, hopefully that will help you see if there are any models you want to pursue, any models you want more information on, anything more you might need in order to recommend a model or models to the town board. Let's look at staffing. I put a plus there because you already use mutual aid, mutual assistance, which is the automatic dispatch, and employees to add to your volunteer membership. So you're already doing this. Keep in mind, you may want to do more of it, but right now, hopefully, that's the way that you're augmenting your fire department membership. We've looked at maybe increasing staffing by gaining recruits through member benefits. Mendon has LOSAP
What was that?
plan for a retirement plan. There's already in the village and the town, property tax exemptions for active volunteers. Those kind of things, the 2% money can only go to the benefit of the membership. It's another enhancement or a benefit recognized by the Office of State Controller. We've talked about training, and you talked about using training to increase the membership capacity to respond and be better at response, hoping that more people will come on certain calls than now. We started some joint training with Mendon. You're looking at standardizing your training so that Mendon and Honey Falls department members are trained to the same standards, trained to the same information. Operational protocols, we've hinted at moving towards some standards for the operational protocols within the two departments because of the response that you're sharing now within the town on a more regular basis. You're also hoping to reduce the response times, knowing that they are increasing. One of those response times that was called out last time specifically was EMS. All right, what else do you want to address in staffing? Let's back up. Did I describe these in a way that is consistent with what your feelings are?
Or what our concerns are?
Concerns, I'm sorry, yes. Thank you. In other words, using these and cross-referencing them with a village authority, a fire protection district authority, a district authority, or a joint district authority, we would consider these, at least these. Is that correct?
Can you provide a further hypothetical example?
If there's one district, if there's one joint district, the training would be standardized across the full membership. As would operational protocols.
I think training's already pretty standardized across the county, like by county.
I would completely disagree with that.
I mean, it's county classes, state
Yeah,
classes.
but there's in-house training that is completely different.
True, a lot of what we already do.
So right now,
I mean,
the departments may have different training for various topics that are not totally aligned, as is, you know, a state class that everybody attends, even if it's put on by the county. Everybody's there from various departments and they're all getting the same coursework. When it comes down to the department, the driver training might be different. There might be some different protocols for training that Honey Falls is, that Mendon doesn't, and vice versa.
We could reframe that as ongoing training. I would agree with you that certification is
Like that part's
state and standard.
state, and then I know that county's working to standardize by areas. When they came to present to us, is what they said. So like they would host a class in Mendon that had Mendon, Honey Falls, Rush in it, so that it was customized to our geographical region, I guess would be the way that they would put it.
Okay, so in our notes on training, Dan will, the credential training is
State.
state.
Versus state of WPC.
That's a standard course. It's 128 hours or 28 hours or 16 hours
Right,
of
right.
this information, and that's delivered each and every time. The variation may come with
Monday night drills.
department drills, regionalized training from the county that would fit an area. Anything else?
Well, at least we're doing on Monday nights.
Yes.
Any other notice we need to make on these?
So we're looking at this and we're trying to take the scenarios of, let's call it, the two separate departments. Don't worry about the fire protection. the district and the department. And what the pluses or minuses would be if they were this, if that was just left the way it was. If you combine them, if you, what would be the other, you mentioned another third.
Well, option
Is that
three,
we're trying to look at this now, so if there was a benefit to the members, member benefit. Is there different member benefits? If it was one fire district, I'm just trying to,
no,
hypothetical.
it would be the same.
okay, so
Everybody
then,
in the- Everybody in the department of that district is,
no, that's what I'm saying is if, instead of separate entities, if they were combined, that could all be.
I mean, they're,
I'm not trying, we're not really looking at the member benefits, we're looking at the administration and if there were pluses or minuses with the different administrations. So if it was a fire district compared to a,
I understand what you're saying.
right? Is that what we're attempting to look at on
Well-
this? Because we're really not, right, if I may, we're not really addressing member benefits. I'm using that as an example. Right now, what the benefits are, we're saying, is there a better spot if it was organized one way or the other? Am I missing that, or is that what we're looking at here?
I think the part I'm having a hard time conceptualizing is breaking it all down into those multiple different governances.
Right.
Whereas I think maybe on a more simplistic view, right, we have two departments or we have one department. I know that when you peel back the layers, there's different ways of governance, right? Joint fire district, the town district, there's the village, town, fire protection district model. But for the sake of conversation and modeling, I think
for one,
it's a little difficult.
So we have two departments.
Yeah.
And we have two jurisdictions for those departments. Right now, there are two member benefits
Mhm.
in both jurisdictions, and one member benefit in an additional benefit in one the other doesn't have. So if you wanted that third benefit and the village doesn't have it, maybe the village doesn't want it, I don't know. But it would be available to a department member in Mendon right now. So Mendon district being involved as district extension or consolidation, joint district would bring that benefit to the members of the department of that district if the jurisdiction keeps that program.
I think that's the if right there, is if you keep that program, because then, I mean, some of those programs double in cost.
Well, I'm just saying, there's things right now that are member benefits that aren't equitable across the departments. We've talked about it. There's a way to achieve that on paper. And that's what we're looking at a paper exercise here to get to something that you think is reasonable as a recommendation. This is just one piece of it. We've got, 3 other areas to go through too. So I don't want you to get mired in this, but I do want you to see that right now, staffing from department to department is different. It's not,
But if I may, the other areas are, what were they, again, equipment or?
equipment and apparatus.
Right.
Financial capacity.
Right.
And administration. Some of them will be more explicit in terms of
And
where they can
I
be.
think you could go on and on about pluses and minuses on all these areas, right?
Oh,
You
yeah,
might have, Department A has a little better on a member benefit, but Department B has a little better training because they just happen to have somebody in place that's gung ho.
yeah. So I'm not trying to
But-
get you stuck on something.
No, but
just want
I
you to
think
see
though, and this is my opinion, I think that we almost need to get stuck a little bit on that piece of paper. Meaning the apparatus, the administration, if you focus on the problem, what you think while we're here is staffing. And we figure out a good or consensus on the staffing, then maybe we can go and hit the administration and say, how do we meet our staffing goals and what's the best administration to make that happen? I think that's this whole time, I'm not,
No, I
I'm
know.
just, I'm asking the committee, isn't that what we're here about? Is the staffing for the most part?
Right.
I mean, you know, or we can talk about the fire trucks, but, you know, that is, I think that's already, we already said that we have confidence. Remember, we talked about this. We have confidence in the people that are in the district fire department, that they've been purchasing equipment, it's up to date, that they're doing a good job of keeping it up to, you know, and it's what we need. So I don't know if we should spend a lot of time talking about that, as this is the meat of the problem right here.
It is the meat of the problem. I
Right.
don't disagree with
Right.
you. However, I would like you to see the other pieces because some of them overlap you and have indications back and forth. These don't stand on their own. Nothing here stands on its own. So let's look at the other ones. And then knowing that this is the real reason that we're here. Is that okay? I just want to spend your time wisely, but I think we need to see the whole picture. So we've added some notes.
I can toss those around, but it sounded like you were trying to
No, I
describe.
don't, we're not doing that yet. It's not gonna work. We're gonna cross ourselves up.
You didn't
I
see
was just
that.
trying to interpret what was being said.
So training, credential training is state mandated, that's standardized. And Monday night department drills vary. And there might be other things that are specific in training from department to department. Is what I picked up from this. Yep, all right, okay, so. I don't knock this one. Here's the second one, and that's the equipment and apparatus. Now, to David's point, yeah, you haven't taken an exception to the appropriateness or the effective ability of the equipment in the apparatus. I hope you can see this. What our concerns really are with equipment and apparatus is our access to augment what we have. Because when you call for mutual aid or you engage in automatic dispatch, you're not only getting staff, you're getting extra equipment, and it becomes part of your fleet. You realize that for all your liability and everything that goes with operating, it comes to you, becomes part of what you're using. And so we know from your discussions about tanker task force and our most recent iteration of it at a fire, that it's a good working operational tool, that one of the things that we want to do is augment our equipment. So mutual assistance and mutual aid bring that as well as this. We want maybe some capital planning so that you have some predictability for the life expectancy of a vehicle. You already know from bonding that there's a life expectancy tied to each fire vehicle, and you can't go out and borrow money for a longer term than the life expectancy attached to that piece of equipment. Is there any thought to capital planning to make sure that we know where we are with predictability of purchase, so that we're not like, you know, sometimes in a new build for a homeowner, you're buying all new appliances and then poof, in 10 years, they're all needing to be replaced at the same time again. So with capital planning, you get some predictability and you can look and forecast, you get some financial stability. So those are concerns you've expressed outside of the realm of, do we have enough pumpers? Do we have enough, you know, ladder ability? Do we have enough rescue ability? So again, these are kind of woven together in some aspects. And you'll see when we get the finances that even more so because of the nature of the cost of this. That's what I'm trying to do, is to pull these kinds of pieces together for you, so you can see where the overlays and the interrelationship is between the topics. So I would ask you, is this something that you think is reasonable here? And do you have other things that you want to add to this?
As far as concerns.
Yeah, as far as concerns,
What about buildings? Where does that fall?
that falls under administration. You'll
Okay.
see that coming.
Thank you.
I would say standardization of equipment and apparatus.
Can you add that, please?
Color. I don't care about the color, pump panels. You're the same kind of ones.
Okay, so we're talking about the ability of department staff to go from their own pumper to another pumper and have the interconnections and quick connects and all the kind of stuff that you need in an operational fire ground.
Area. One truck
It's
is
the same department stuff. Department.
within location, so.
And
Right.
so
Right.
here's some more crossover. Training banning is what I pointed to. Okay. Did somebody else have a comment? All right, let's go on to the next one, which should be financial considerations. So when we looked at the financial capacity across the meetings we've had and the graphics that we have, you became very aware very quickly that even in our own town, the property tax rate is different from the fire protection district to the village to the district. And one of the things that you discussed among yourselves was some of you felt there should be more equity, there should be more of the same rate per thousand than this big variation, because if we look at the district rate and we look at the village and the fire protection rate, which are close together, excuse me, the district is almost double what the other two are. Not commenting on that, I'm just saying that as a fact, and you've seen that in your graphic. In terms of budgeting, you know that in the village budget, we have a fire department. So it's like having a public works department, it's like having an ambulance department. Each department has appropriations for expenditures, and then there's general revenue that comes in. We know that the fire protection contract value, when it comes to the village, goes to the general fund, and the village can use it at its own discretion. It's not like the district where the revenue that comes in is going back out in expenditures for the cost center of the district to deliver fire protection in the district. So there's less transparency on the village side because of the nature of the fire protection being a department of the village than there would be in the district, because there's no true cost center of appropriation and revenue balance. We also know that when the village does its fire protection contract, it's basing its figures and its calculation on a fiscal year that's already been completed. It's a previous fiscal year than the one they are currently in, where the district has, this is the fiscal year, these are the appropriations, this is the revenue that's necessary. In terms of accountability then, if you look at the village budget, the fire department and the ambulance department, or EMS, they're both wrapped inside of the general village budget, both for expenditures and appropriations and revenues. So it's very difficult for the village to say, here's what came in and it was applied back to fire EMS as cost centers. So in terms of budgeting, the district budgets, the village budgets, the town budgets for the fire protection district, rate per thousand is given to them by the village. But there are 3 jurisdictions involved here in 2 budgets. Capital needs, what we know about capital needs, we only know from the reserve funds that the village has and the district has. We are not aware of any capital budgeting done by the district or the village. It doesn't mean it doesn't happen, just wasn't shared if it's there. We know that the village has debt. We know that the district does not have debt. We know that there is a maximum indebtedness according to state law. We have a graphic on that. We have seen those figures, and again, I'm just going to say they are rough. They are for our purposes only, just as an example. Those figures are not cast in stone by any means. But they are, I would say they're relevant to what we're doing. They are a good reflection on what you can expect a jurisdiction to take on in debt. We know both departments, the Village of Honey Falls and the Honey Falls Fire Department work in concert on grants, as do Mendon Fire District and Mendon Fire Department. You have a graphic on each of the grants. There have been significant amounts of money at play. Some of them are in-kind matches, some are not, some are public sources, some are private sources. That wouldn't necessarily change with any structural modeling that you want to suggest. There are real property assets. The village has them, the fire district has them, and the fire department has. The fire department has land assets. The district has land and a fire station and equipment as assets. The village has owns property that's leased to the fire department for training grounds. That property is outside the corporate limit of the village. The village owns property in the village for fire protection on Monroe Street, where the firehouse is located, and the village owns the firehouse and the equipment that's in the firehouse, and it's used just like the district owns the equipment that's used by the Mendon Fire Department. So for this real property, the improvements, which would be the buildings, there has to be maintenance and replacement consideration, just like you do with your homeowner, with your normal budgeting for maintenance on the structure and replacement of things, capital expenditures, roof, plumbing, electric, those kinds of things that are invested for the purpose of the building and the use of the building. If you want to talk about buildings, this is where we would entertain that topic that you indicated on. Did you have a question or?
No, at this point, it's just, where does it land?
There, and it's an asset. The town of Mendon does not have assets, whether it's real property or equipment or the fire service. The only thing I can say to you that in the general scope of under the umbrella of fire protection, both the town and the village offer municipal services. You've seen those in the graphic, and those come under the buildings that they have, be it the village hall or the town hall. So there's some administrative things that are wrapped into the real property of the town as well as the village outside of operational fire service. Okay. Anything else you want to get into?
Can I ask about grants?
Yes.
Okay, fire departments, the current county RFP that's out? Are you familiar with that?
For recruitment and retention.
So,
I'm sorry.
go ahead.
No, I made Corey and he aware of that as well as our EMS. With that, look at that about a couple of days ago.
Yeah, so I made a call because I was important because I think it kind of got snuck, but it was sent out supposedly to all the fire departments and the EMS agencies on the 16th of December. And it's hidden under, if you will, I'll say hidden, under RFPs in the county. And it's basically COVID money. And it's a request for proposals from all the departments under the guise of EMS. But if you read it, if fire departments, districts, whatever, can look at it and put a proposal in it to get that money. They're very vague on how much, who's gonna get it. And the proposal is wide open. It doesn't say you have to buy 10 toothpicks. It just says, give us anything.
When is it due and where does the
So I put a
application
call-
go?
You gotta look up Monroe County. I actually have the number for it here because I called, see,
I think it has to be submitted on the 31st. It wasn't a huge window.
there isn't,
December,
no.
so January.
It's due the 31st.
I got a stack of suggestions.
Okay, so it's RFP 72-22. So if you get the county website, you gotta maneuver to that. But it's funding American Rescue Plan, and that's what it says. So it doesn't say emergency funding or whatever, it's kind of, you can look right past it. But I'm just saying, there's, all of a sudden, there's this derogatory COVID cheese money, COVID cheese money.
The number. RFP number.
The RFP is 72-22,
Thank you. Okay, so it's due the 31st of January,
which is
coming.
2 weeks.
And where is it submitted?
You got it. There's a whole, you gotta sign in the county website. There's a process that you
Is it
go.
only electronic submission?
I
Well,
don't know.
You,
Who does it go to? Where does it go?
it goes to the county,
Yeah, but it's a big county. Where does it
Yeah.
maybe the Office of Emergency Affairs.
goes to emergency management?
Is it
within public
Tantello?
safety?
Is he the director there?
He's the public safety director, so my assumption is gonna go into the public safety department for the grant administrator
Yeah.
to review and assess.
Because actually, it's bent towards EMS because that was the discussion of you can't get an ambulance, or if you get one, you know, there's a process that's going on in the county. So they're talking about how to help that, but this was brought up and I heard it and I go, well, wait a minute. You mean there's this out there? What is it? And then I looked into it a little bit. So it's great. Again, I don't know if the pot is $1 million or 100.
Well, in terms of clarification, Brian, or David, is it your understanding that this is an RFP to individual agencies or an RFP to a consultant to take
No.
applications from agencies?
To the agency.
To the agency.
Directly to the
And
agency?
it was to, you had to be an agency. In other words, I can't submit a proposal person. It
Gotta
had to
come
be
from the,
the 34 departments and 17 ambulances or something that are in the county.
It's my understanding that this village, we can't apply for it. It would have to be the corporation for each that they can apply for. It did come to the ambulance chief, but as far as I know, because I reached out to Corey, that he didn't get any notification.
Well, that's what they said, that all, it went out to all of, to those, I think it's 3417 agencies on the 16th. That's what it's,
It's only another 114 the second period.
yeah.
That's good.
Well, how do you learn about this stuff?
Well, like anything else, you gotta be, I heard a little something, and then I thought, well, wait a minute, why is, you know, does anybody know this? Because it could be, because they reference it towards funding towards ambulance. The problem with that, of course, is if it's not ongoing, right? So if here's $10, but next week there's
Right.
none, so that's, but
but it's to beef up.
Well, I think what happened was the county here got COVID money and they're trying to distribute it.
Can you,
Right.
can you request the list of who they send it to? Obviously, there's outdated information.
I'm sure if you call the fire coordinator's office, they can tell you.
So I just want to make
Okay.
sure if there's millions of dollars there and it's helpful towards building a firehouse if somebody needs or wants, right? Or something, let's not.
Let's not overlook it as an opportunity.
In 3 weeks that you need to put out a probably 200-page report to get the money.
Well, Anthony, take a look, see
Seriously.
what you can,
I got 200 pages for it. I'll send it.
There you
and I don't
go.
know, Ryan.
I
Mike,
think,
you might wanna
and
check
the
and
thing to
see
do is
what's going on
overwhelm
on
them
that.
with stuff.
Yeah.
Ask for food. What do we need? Well, ask for 10 mil, and when you get 3, go, oh geez.
That's how we got them. That's the government.
And well,
And
I'm
then they
gonna
get
say,
no, you're like, oh.
this money doesn't now exist, right? Sure, it's.
Okay, thank you. David.
Yeah.
But I just want to make sure that we're
Yeah.
doing this, that's.
Okay, anything else under financial capacity? All right, let's go on, and the fourth topic area is administration. And we know we have 3 jurisdictions. We have 2 general purpose governments, the village and the town, and then the special municipality called the Mendon Fire District. One of the things that administrative people look for is to minimize any liability. There might be some opportunity to do that as we look at the structures that are available to deliver fire protection and any recommendation toward one or the other. And where funding might be where you have funding that you use, but yet you do not have input into the decision-making for that funding. And again, that example would be the fire protection district, where the money coming from the fire protection district is more than what the village taxpayers put into the calculation of the cost of fire service. So when you talk about equity in delivering for taxpayers, not only is there an inequity right now and a variable with a property tax rate from the district to the fire protection district in the village, there's also the idea of you put money in as a contract, but yet you have nothing to say about how it's used. Not judging here, just saying that's how it goes. Because when you enter a contract, sometimes there's room for negotiation. Sometimes there's input from both parties, but we're talking about a village fire department. We're talking about the village budget with the board of trustees establishing the budget and administering the budget. They tell the town, here's your piece of it for this portion of time. If the town disagrees, they may go back, but the town has no direct real say in how the money is spent on a regular basis. So if funding in equation with delivering input on decision-making is an important factor, that should be considered. And we would look to the town to see, if that's important, fine. If it's not, it's not. But these were just 3 points to start out any discussion. So is there something you might want to add? Anything you want further definition on?
With long-term planning
Yeah.
be appropriate.
Yep, long-term planning, which would include probably operation, whatever's planned there for operational changes that come along, as well as capital planning, financial planning.
And then maybe, what's it?
Regional,
Regional planning.
Regional
yeah,
planning.
Sure.
like just really looking forward.
Yeah.
Uh,
No, sorry, go ahead.
And I don't know how you would measure or necessarily show, but department culture as well, I think falls under administration.
Okay.
I don't know how you would really
For example,
quantify that.
well, the administration and jurisdiction sets the policies for. So that would come under there. So policy certainly is a bullet point. And under policies, you consider the culture.
Yeah, I'm just thinking, you got two departments, two chiefs, they change. You might have two guys that are very much so on the same page and the same mindset. And you bring somebody else in who's maybe have a different mindset in that department. So it's a shift one way. Another department, they change from somebody they can easily shift the other way, and we can go from where we are today, working together, to being back to where we were in 1980. In short time frame.
So in that regard, two jurisdictions would have that variation. If there was one jurisdiction with both departments, that would go,
There's less input
yes.
into culture, I would say.
And one of the things
Variation.
that you mentioned, and I wrote it down as a quote, Anthony, was you're concerned with the ability of, and you were talking about Honey Falls, in the court, in a period of 10 years to even have somebody trained for chief and commanders.
Yes.
So when you look at staffing,
Yeah.
you have to consider
But
that.
when you start,
I mean, that ER's got this same chief, that,
Okay, it's 8 o'clock, and I don't want to keep you more than we need to, but I want to make sure that when we leave here tonight, you're in a place that you're okay with what we've done, so that next time we can start to take a look at putting these into a matrix with the jurisdiction possibilities. So you can look at, don't change anything, and what that might mean. Change to this, and what that might mean. Change to this, and what it might mean. So according to village, protection district, joint district. Those are the 4 structural jurisdictions that we have for consideration. And then we have to see if there's any advantage for any of these things inside of those 4 structures, and identify them. If they're there, what are they? And do they have a consequence that helps you decide, maybe we should do this, no, maybe we shouldn't do that. I don't know. But that's where we are. That's where we're going the next time.
I'm going to push on a little. I feel like we just got our feet kind of.
Okay.
Yeah.
So,
What do they go, who watch orders?
so when we started this, you
Yes.
were concerned, and everybody's going, yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
The staffing is the reason that we're here. So now that you've seen some of this, if we pull this back to staffing, is that what you want to do?
It's me personally, I mean.
Well, I mean, what do you?
I think,
what
but I
would you
also
like?
think that maybe this staffing, because that is the elephant, might not back us, but point us towards the administrative end of it, and the, whether it should be a joint or this or that. In other words, if this consensus of the room here was that you needed 100 guys, personnel
Thank
a week, I don't know what numbers we're doing. This hypothetical, I'm being very, and we say that's where we think it should be, then we should be, how do we facilitate? Numbers with administration, how would you do that? How would you do money and so forth? I mean, I'm thinking that's really the driver is, we'll make it fit, or say we need 100 personnel. Can we make it fit between the capital and the administration? Well, can't make it happen. So can we make 20 work? And I'm not just saying it has to be paid, whatever. I'm trying to be very.
You're just using a number of. people,
Yeah, I'm just
no
trying to
matter
come
how
up
they-
with, theories here is trying to get us to that staffing. You know, we talked, you mentioned regional again, because we've heard that before. And the regional is great. I mean, if you really think about it, we already are states regional, the county, the Western New York. But that's all good and great until you need the help in 3 minutes. The regional part kind of loses it.
Well, it applies very well on a regional scale.
Well, if you have a
But when there's-
snowstorm in Buffalo, that's for 4 days. Okay, well, I got time to
Right.
drive there.
When, and,
But-
Mr. Smith is the generalized, person, I know it's the last name.
Yes.
When Mr. Smith's house is on fire.
Yes, then all of a sudden the
state
regional
regionalization.
means nothing to me. I don't care that there's a fire truck. You know, and,
Well, let's drive to the
you
point.
know, that's great, but it's not much help.
Every emergency slope happens to somebody in some
Within
designated place in the
Arms distance,
geography,
right?
and it already has assigned public safety providers. That's it. That's how New York State structures fire service, local. Because recognized early on that it needed to be local to get there in the quickest time and help. So that model doesn't change. For better and different. If you look at staffing and you think about it as a financial capacity, because staffing means training, it means other things. I'm just gonna point out to you from the information that you've seen. How do you get more money for capital expenses if you have to go into debt? We have 3 jurisdictions. How do you get there to get more money? Who's got the most money at the table? Supervisor's right there. The town of Mendon is the greatest financial asset among the 3 jurisdictions. So who can have the most indebtedness? The town of Mendon. Can the town of Mendon provide fire protection? No. But the value of the town of Mendon would come into play if there was one fire district in the town of Mendon. All the taxable value in the town would be available to that fire district for indebtedness, for property tax levy, for any financial consideration. That's a fact. I mean, we're here and it's Mendon, and I'm saying, Mendon Fire District, because there's already a district here. But if you took town A, village A, and fire district A, and you put them on a sheet of paper and they're bounded areas, the town would always come out as the top financier. Because they have the most assets. They have the ability to levy property tax. They have the ability to employ. They have the ability to do anything a general purpose government has. Now, how do you get the town assets to the fire service? You do it through a district, a fire protection district. That's the only way you get the town assets in play for fire protection.
But they're already in play.
They are in play, however, the town assets are fractured between the fire district and the fire protection district. And the village assets are at play now here because the fire department, HFFD, is a village department. So you have 3 jurisdictions with autonomy in several different ways, and they don't all come together.
But that kind of goes to the indebtedness. In other words, the town is this big and can take on this much debt. The fire district is this big and can take on this much debt. But as a whole, if they can carry 1/3 of the debt, and they can carry 1/3, and they can carry 1/3, it's all one.
The town doesn't control the property tax rate for the fire protection district, the village.
Or the village, I'm
The
sorry.
village control. The
Right.
town doesn't have
Village.
anything to say.
So are you making the argument that it was combined into one?
I'm just giving you an example of how we get the greatest amount of money at play to do anything you want to do.
And fine, okay, that's fine. So then I'm asking further to that, the greatest money in play to, And the money into play would be for what purpose?
Taxing for budgets.
Well, I mean, obviously to spend, but why do we need more money into play? Is what I'm asking. You follow me? Strictly the staffing.
I mean, but it would do all those things. It's the staffing, it's liabilities, it's taking care of the buildings. If it was a separate entity, all they then decide on the amount of money for taxes. And then they would also, under that, because they have the directors, they can also set the budget and they can also decide.
All I'm saying is the town has the biggest pot of money to bring to the table. If you look at a fire delivery service that is based on that town's assets, you're looking at either a district or a joint district, because right now we have a village. Now, what that does is open the gates of money wherever it might be needed. If you use one jurisdiction and you have one authority, it would either be 5 commissioners.
Right.
Or, because we have 5 commissioners, we have a fire commission board for the fire protection district, that's the town board, 5 people, and the village board of trustees is 5 people for the village. So we narrow the authority, in other words, we narrow the number of people who can make the decisions, we get the cost center into one focus. We have one jurisdiction, whether it's a district, joint fire district.
So you're not, I wouldn't say that you're making an argument, you're making a statement that if you brought it all under one umbrella, there's more money there.
There's gains all.
And I go back then to, what do we need more money? Now, I'm not trying, what I'm after is, the only thing we really need more money for is, we have fire trucks, they have to bring them, we have firehouses. Is staff.
Well, the other thing that we do would be to reduce the cost, but not that. Because right now, the village pays insurance, the district pays insurance. We have assets.
Well, I could, maybe I could, I'm not arguing, I'm just
No,
being, this is the way my brain works.
Yeah.
Is if entity A and B, we both have car insurance. Just because now we get together, I still have to insure the vehicles, so it doesn't necessarily mean there's a whole big savings, you know what I'm, there's still.
I mean, none of us are insurance.
You know, if I'm gonna mow an acre of lawn or 2 acres of lawn, with 2 mowers or 1 mower, still need 4 gallons of gas.
That liability, so
The liability is still, I understand there's some savings by coming together on the administrative aspect. I mean, you could have, if you're paying a treasurer, you could have a treasurer.
Maybe.
One
piece of
lawyer.
Equipment can be offloaded, I don't know, but in addition to having more money to spend, the economies of scale, and I don't know exactly what they are, but these are just some examples.
Alright.
Reduction in equipment, maybe reduction in liability, because when you pull things together, you wouldn't pay, you pay a little less as one than you pay individually, now it's 2. I don't know, but there's a reduction in cost. You see that in the Rockefeller report that talks about Laurelton and Ridge Culver coming together and the anticipated 5% savings. So there are some things that can happen financially.
And 5%, and it's fine, but it's kind of Laurelton and like Ridge Culver, Ridge Culver. We're almost swimming in the same pool. You know, they were so, well,
I mean, they're doing a lot of things together.
yeah, I know, but I mean, 5%, I mean, I guess 5%, but 5% is gonna be eclipsed as soon as you, anything that you grow, and I understand there's I have a business, we need one of those things, not 6 of them, but that also means that that one thing is available to everybody all the time. So it kind of loses at 5%. 5%.
I'm just
I-
quoting the report. I
No,
don't
no,
know.
again, I'm not arguing. I'm just saying that to me is like 5%. Probably, I bet you they ate that up instantly with the amount of people and stuff that they changed over there.
Maybe.
I guarantee you.
I know
already
there are
see the
some
operation
countries
change.
and states that can't have it. Whether or not, one here is enough or not, I don't know. The other possibility here is that the town decides to contract outside of the village of Glens Falls. They decide to contract with another department. They may contract with the Mendon district.
Rural metro or.
Or the town board decides, we want to be a district. We want a district here in Mendon, but Mendon doesn't want us, but we're adjacent to Henrietta, Rush, Pittsburgh. Maybe they want us. I mean, look at Henrietta, just absorb West Brighton. So because there are adjacencies, there are opportunities that are outside of our realm in here. So I'm not suggesting any particular thing. I'm just trying to point out to you that there are options for changes in jurisdiction. Some of them may hold more value than others.
What's the concern?
Of what?
Of two jurisdictions? What's the?
What's the, that I have through two?
Yeah.
I don't care if there's 5. My basic thing is very simple. I've been in the fire service, you're in a. You need somebody there quickly. You can't, and that cannot be compromised. It's as simple as that, in my estimation. I had the fortune of using my old department a week ago. And the response was exactly what I thought it should. Bam, there, 3 men, ambulance, bam, and things were how it, and I'm like, that's how it works. And I know that's the perfect scenario. What I'm saying is that we can't have half of that, or we got to strive for that, and that's why I think we're here. And if it means if it's 2 departments or districts or 1 or that to me is irrelevant. It's I go back to what do we need, and then if it means having 1 entity, let's do it. Let's do what you suggested.
Right.
I don't. That's all minutia to me. Honestly, I look at this and go, we need staffing. How are you going to do that? Now I go back to the money. We said, okay, well, the town has this bigger pot of money, but what do we want the money for? Well, it's basically either employing people, adding some kind of member benefits, which would offset tax breaks or low staff plans. You could hire a training officer that was specifically, for the 2 departments, even though 2 separate departments. The operational, somebody that, also works, make sure the operational protocols are the same. Something like, hey, let's get together and let's, can we get all the EMS equipment on the driver's side first compartment? I mean, that's where that's obviously the money. The response times, in my estimation, then come with obviously personnel available. And that could be on the volunteer side with better, the member benefits, but that waxes and wanes, You also, the response times could be something like another firehouse. Middle of, I don't, again, I'm trying,
Yeah.
pick a spot, it's in the middle where it's cut,
But I
and
think
then those folks then are more attuned to get to it quicker because, they're more involved, et cetera, et cetera.
and you just made a number of points if there was more money.
Well, that's what I'm saying though, is if money is the answer,
Well, I don't know
Or-
that it's the only answer, but
Right.
it does have a benefit to help a lot of us.
right?
I think, if I can interject.
No,
David,
absolutely.
I think when you said, how does that bring in more money? The taxable assessment throughout the town is 1 number.
Mhm.
The thing that creates the differential is because the rate and for village taxpayers, and people in the fire protection district is lower than the fire district. So if everybody was paying the same amount,
Mhm.
it would bring in more money. And I think, and I don't know if I don't put words in your mouth, but I think that's what you're saying. And I think that's kind of what you were asking. How does that bring in
More money because it equalizes. It's funny you brought up West Brighton. When Henrietta, West Brighton.
Yeah.
West Brighton languished for years because the tax base wasn't there. So when you went to take it over, you had to increase the taxes on the people in the district, everybody, to have enough money to pay to provide service in West Brighton. That's why nobody wanted to touch it, because it was a loser. It was from a money standpoint. The city, for $1 million was $1 million a year or something through a truck over there and then. And, was that?
Short-lived.
Was short-lived, and Henrietta picked it up, but I'm gonna tell you, Henrietta probably added how many guys to their, so they took, but everybody paid for that,
There's another-
and that's a hard sell sometimes to
Here's another
say.
example. Wheatland, Scottsville just created a joint district, Village of Scottsville, the town of Wheatland for the fire protection district in the
Okay.
town with the village. served. There's a joint fire district right on our doorstep. We've gone from 2 jurisdictions to 1 for administration. We've gone now to 1 5-member commission.
You're speaking of. Wheatland,
Scottsville.
Okay, all right, yeah.
So that's gone to 1 jurisdiction from the village of Scottsville. And the town of Wheatland is the fire protection district, our town board. So they've gone to a district format. So they've gone from 2 authorities, 2 jurisdictions to 1. So they've taken the cost center, pulled it together. They've taken the budgeting and pulled it together. If any of you get the Sentinel or you read about it, they just went through buying the joint district just bought the village assets, the firehouse and the property for like $600 and some thousand
From the
from
fire
the
department,
village,
Inc. Oh,
from the village, because Scottsville was a village fire department. So that took roughly, I'm gonna say, I don't remember now, I went to all the hearings, somewhere between like 5 and 8 years to pull together.
mhm.
And then all of a sudden, they said, yes, let's move it forward. So that's happened. I don't know economies of scale if they're seeing any reductions, but certainly they have increased their financial capacity. They put the focus on one cost center, 1 administrative unit. It's still the same fire department because it was the same fire department that served both territories.
So, and you probably don't know this, but I'll ask the question is, by doing that, did they alleviate, we would have to ask them, a staffing issue or a member benefits issue? In other words,
There was only 1 fire department involved. So I don't know what the
They
new
had the town
administration,
contract, right?
if they
well, they had
had
contract.
changed it.
But, right, but so you went to 1 cost center, 1 district or whatever it is. But if it doesn't answer our issues that the fire departments came to the supervisor about, I don't know what. So it saves a couple of bucks.
Which is important, you're a
Just-
taxpayer representative.
Yeah, I am, but I'm also have a family that comes before the money.
Understand,
And,
and I don't know the,
you can't put a yoke on us and say, well, state, here, do this, and you get this much money.
no,
But like anything else, you want to pay for a service. And if you live here and you want to say, I'm okay paying for the service of Instacart to bring the groceries, that's my, great. But in this instance, I think money towards safety is not a bad, it's not an investment, but it's not bad insurance, right? I think we have to have, why, you have to.
Well, more money can come from the village putting more money in, the town putting more money in, and the district putting more. Things don't have to change for more money to come.
Again, I think maybe I'm not expressing my point correctly. Is money doesn't solve the issues as much as it facilitates, this employing people, et cetera. Is when we look at the staffing and you're looking at, forget employing, so we don't talk about money, we're just gonna volunteer. How do we get, if you're gonna look, I mean, isn't that part of, should we be looking at that? No employees.
All right,
Just
look at
saying.
no employees. Anthony will tell you that the recruitment effort, the numbers go up in recruitment, but the retention doesn't stay. The average retention is 2.01 years.
2 years.
So it's a continuous process.
It's
as you
a
know.
revolving door, I do. And then, so the next question is, have we exhausted that avenue?
With our current means.
And so then I'll ask, and what, when you say your current means money or is means,
Means money, maybe. The bulk of it is money, right? You need
Right.
money to provide some sort of benefit materially or culturally to somebody to get them to join.
Right.
We've exhausted effort from the same 10 people that have been trying to solve this problem for as long as I've been in the fire department.
and I come from a combination part, and I've watched any number of experiments, is that the word, of how to retain, and right now, half the people there have flag cards. Who's that? He's got the card. Meaning, they're saying, you take this piece of emergency equipment home with you with X, and you're on
I mean,
call.
I mean,
Do the
you're,
assignment.
Business duty assignment, blah, blah, blah. I mean, I'm asking, not,
your past employer is probably the preeminent example of incentivizing volunteers in this county. And it is a full-time job
it
for
is,
multiple people.
So you're looking at, the college kids.
Yeah.
The bunkers, the LoSAP, flag cars.
Property tax exemption.
Property tax exemptions, et cetera. And I know that. I mean, they have been life support, they're pushing drugs on them right along here. And I part of that is cultural.
Sure.
That it'd be more than it is necessarily it's not a money issue. But so I guess what I'm after, if you've done this stuff and you're like, we're end.
I don't know how much more blood you can squeeze. from
I'm not criticizing, I'm asking more than.
I feel that way personally.
Because a lot of that I also see as it doesn't have staying power. Do you know
No,
what
it doesn't. That's why 2.01 years is what you're getting out of the
Right.
average.
Right.
And as I understood it, it was because, if I understood what was said in previous meetings, it was because there were young individuals who, were maybe living with their parents, or maybe they had an apartment or some kind of a thing. And then as they got a little bit older, they moved out of the community. It wasn't necessarily because they didn't want to be responsible for fire service anymore as a volunteer. They didn't live here anymore.
And part of it was that they couldn't afford it.
Right,
Right.
there's many
That's what
factors,
you're
right?
saying.
You have two demographics that we draw from. We draw from this pool of 18, 19-year-old, I'll call them kids for lack of a better term, who come in, they're enthusiastic, they come in hard into the fire department, and then life takes them in another direction. As we all know, this is a metropolis of employment opportunities, and colleges are elsewhere. Life in general, boyfriends, girlfriends, living arrangements takes you elsewhere. And then we look at this, we target 30, 40-year-old families that move into this area for the great school district that we have, and it's probably the largest draw of the area. And these people quickly find out that the time that we need from them doesn't correlate well with having a family, a full-time job, and a commute to generally another area of the county to be a volunteer. And it overwhelms them, and not to mention the nature of the work. It's not, it is most certainly not for everyone. I mean, they're having hard times hiring people to be police officers and firemen right now. And it's not for a lack of trying to incentivize that.
Right, I'm gonna make 2 points about things you talked about at other meetings. One was, both departments have like part-time people. They have a laborer in the village who's there from whatever time in the morning to whatever time in the afternoon. And that's staffed Monday through Friday.
6 to 4:30.
Dale's there every day, Monday through
Full-time.
Friday.
Yep.
Okay. One of the points that was made was part-time employment and the ability to have somebody in the firehouse ready to go out the door, like Dale and like Pete Henry. So if you looked at the 2 jurisdictions who now are employing and said, we want that same opportunity at this additional time. So maybe the next most highest call volume comes from their time of dismissal until midnight. So you hire another part-time person, or not a full-time employee because they're not doing the weekends, but a weekday person or a weekend, depending on when your next most call volume is, to cover that shift. There's an employment opportunity that doesn't necessarily cost the value of a firefighter, civil service title tested person. The other thing we talked about, and I think Jerry Lonter hit this on the head, and I've heard you discussing this, is the EMS. The cost of an EMS provider is not as much money to employ as a firefighter is when you look at the salary and the benefits. And we know that EMS calls are not highly populated in terms of response from the fire departments. Mendon has indicated that most of the response to the EMS calls comes from the same people. And Honeoye Falls is showing that they go on EMS calls pretty routinely during the time of day when their part-time person is employed, so 6 a.m. to 4. Other than that, you're tying up your fire department people at EMS calls. So is there an opportunity to offload some of that pressure on the fire department by looking to the village to hire more ambulance people or commit an ambulance to the Mendon Firehouse? These things are not new on the table. They've been discussed for years and at different points. But if you had the opportunity to know predictably that there was going to be an ambulance in the Mendon Fire Hall that would be responding to the Mendon Fire District calls, and you wouldn't necessarily have to put fire department people out the door right away, that might take off some of the pressure. If you knew in the fire department that you had a staffed ambulance here ready to go in the village to the fire protection district of the village, that might take some of the pressure off the fire department response to EMS. So when we talk about money, it's not just in hiring fire department. It could be relieving the fire department of responsibilities to a certain extent by looking to other cost centers for hiring schematics. That's just one thing. Maybe there's somebody now who does training part-time in a fire department who could take on some of our work at some point. I don't know. But when we look at staffing, please don't box yourself into, it's got to be a full-time paid civil service firefighter position. Because there might be some opportunities to move things around.
I would like to provide not opposing point of view, but maybe another point of view to what you said about using the reduction in EMS burden to offset the need for staffing with the fire department.
I'm not saying it offsets the need,
No,
I'm just
no,
saying
no.
it relieves some of the pressure.
It
of
relieves-
That particular call type.
It relieves pressure on call volume. It does not relieve pressure from providing a effective response force for a fire, which is the critical mission of the fire department.
Understand?
Admittedly, fires of severe nature are down across the United States through engineered control, through culture, through many different factors. However, the risk persists. And one of the difficulties that the fire department has is justifying staffing, because many people look at call volume as the metric to evaluate that against, and it's not, it's risk. Risk is what you have to look at. And through that lens, say, are we providing a appropriate service? Not if we can take them from 400 calls a year to 200 calls a year, will that alleviate the need to have 3 people at the fire station, 2 people at
Here's
the
an
fire station?
option, I just throw it out there. Now that third-party billing can be done by districts,
Let's see what we pay for with an ambulance.
okay, there's a way to get a revenue stream.
First off, you take the EMS off the table, and this is what I used to argue. So you're gonna employ me to sit here. And I go back to. This person needs help. Used to get me so mad that vehicle would sit there, because that wasn't their call. He would, oh my God, put it on the road. I don't care who's in it, get it down the road. Don't tell me that, oh, that's an EMS. Oh, that's an EMVA up the road. We don't go, it wasn't it wasn't coded right. So I should sit here and not go help? That doesn't, so I understand what you're saying, alleviate some pressure, but on the other hand, especially from a volunteer aspect,
Well,
you could
depending
say
on the
that,
call.
that EMS is like kills you, oh, I don't want to go to EMS calls. On the other hand, if you're doing 200 calls a year without the EMS, nobody's gonna, I don't want it there. If you're in the fire service, you want to go, not that you want to go, people are hurt, but you want to be involved. You want to turn a wheel. You don't want to go.
You want to exercise your skills.
Yeah, exercise, and the only way of proficiency to exercise your skills. Right? So, absolutely. So the more you're on the, going. Said something mushy about the EMS there. Must be train of thought. Oh,
Well, if you put,
my thought was, it made me think of something else. Also, what happens if, and I think you might have already seen this, is if you decided that you were going to have personnel, let's call them firefighters, civil service firefighters that were staffed 24/7. If you go down that route and you make that decision that that's the thing to do and moves forward, you have to then be very competitive, because if you don't, you become the stepping block to everywhere else, right?
yeah,
So, and I'm not, what I'm saying is, so you can't go in this, and this is terrible to say, you can't go in it on the cheap. You have to be, we're gonna hire X and we're gonna pay them competitive. We're not gonna pay them 40, we're gonna pay them 65, and they're gonna have benefits, et cetera. Or they will be gone as soon as the next department up the road, Henrietta calls and says, I need guys, and we're paying, so forth. They have to, that's how it. So if you do go down that route, that's to your argument, the town would have a bigger pie. That you could make sure that you hired these folks and that they stuck because they could make a living, right, doing it. So, I mean, that's been my experience.
I think there's certainly pipeline fire
Yeah,
departments.
definitely.
I just want to add one thing is that, a couple of years ago, Brian, I'm sure you remember this one. There was a big radio purchase, and the rate for the fire protection district went up dramatically here from, I'm gonna say 60 to 90 cents in those ranges. And, Brian and I had talked about it, and I was kind of expecting the phone to ring off the hook, and my experience as an elected official has been very concerned about raising taxes. And quite frankly, I was surprised. I mean, I could count on one hand how many people even noticed. on their tax bill, really surprised me. And I know you and I had many conversations about it, and we were kind of like getting ready to bar the door.
Don't know what's gonna happen.
Yeah.
There was nothing.
There was a big,
Not that, you know, that's good, but I mean, it's good.
No.
service. We had-
Yeah. but I mean, nobody even asked questions. I mean, I think I fielded 4 or 5 questions about it, which I was quite frankly amazed. That people weren't like going, whoa, how did my fire protection bill go up by a third, roughly a third? It's crickets. So,
I think generally the fire service has I'd call it a blind goodwill from the public, but it makes it all the more important that we are
Good
police
stewards.
ourselves and are
Yeah,
good stewards
yeah,
of
due diligence.
that goodwill. Should we hit a couple more? Should we hit a couple more points?
Well, it's up to you. Is there anything else you want to add here or?
With reduction on manpower hours or manpower hours be a point of evaluation? Again, going towards streamlining and efficiency.
I'm not following Will.
It might be administration purely, but
Give me an example so I know.
so if you need X amount of people for, we'll say a duty night in Mendon to staff one engine, and because of you're going on these calls and you need the same amount of people in Honey Falls to go on the same kind of calls. If it's a different deployment of resources or a different structure of fire service.
Yeah.
You may need less people staffed on those 2 apparatus because they would be responding jointly to everything or.
So in terms of staffing over here, it'd be like economy of scale.
I'll give a very specific answer. So right now, we do a duty night, Monday through Friday. We're trying to do a duty night. It's difficult to staff that. So what we try to strive for is a driver, an officer, and 2 firefighters. Fantastic if everybody's interior qualified. It doesn't always happen. And they go on everything during the night from 10 PM to 6 in the morning.
So they're scheduled.
Yeah, we're trying to schedule
Okay.
people. This is your commitment to us this week.
Mhm.
Please.
Danny Cole had a duty shift.
Yeah, so we think, 6 people is probably the minimum for an automatic alarm that would 5 to 6 would provide a safety threshold to the community if there's an actual event and to our own people if they have to respond and enter into a dangerous situation. If Mendon is the way we run, we don't go to your automatic alarms, you don't go to our automatic alarms. If you're staffing a duty night with the same, 4 people, we have 8 people staffed in town. But if we think, okay, we really just need 6 people responding to something like this, now you can take the burden off of each department for 1 person and drop from 8 to 6. It requires less staffing, volunteer wise, less manpower hours, less burden.
Larger.
Right, you can spread hopefully those other 2 to another night, spread out your coverage. Because right now we can't cover 52 weeks, 5 days a week with our volunteer staff.
they don't wait at the fire. They're not at. the
No, they're at
fire.
home. So you still have to,
Their homes still.
yeah, we're still taking 6 minutes to get that truck on the road.
Okay.
But could they stay? They could stay on.
We don't really have the facilities.
No,
Could they amend it?
The firehouse is built to
We've
have
heard
the
of it.
facilities if we wanted to do it. We've looked into it. I mean, it's all about call volume too. If you have a higher call volume, getting people to stay at the firehouse is a little bit easier than if you're gonna stay there overnight and get nothing.
Right.
Right.
And that's,
Are there still veterans of the space?
There are.
I'm just saying, use your
Yeah.
resources, know what they are, and trying to accommodate changes or opportunities here.
Or probably if they're allowed to stay home and be on call.
Yeah.
That's probably the desire.
It is an improvement over what we're doing, whereas we're saying, hey, if the pager goes off.
Yeah.
please come.
Let's hope somebody shows.
Let's hope
first.
somebody shows up,
Versus
right?
we know we're gonna get these 3 or 4 guys.
It doesn't address response time. There's no effect there. The effect is in hopefully a guaranteed amount of people that are going to show up.
But if you had the facilities for them to stay, then the response time would be obviously reduced.
Potentially, I don't know.
It would
Would,
be a
if you were a volunteer at your stage of life, would you
So-
go down to the firehouse and sleep?
Well,
for duty night?
so, it's kind of, so my son Will just joined, right? He'd probably stay there because he's 20 and he can sleep on the table. You know what I mean? He doesn't have the time. We don't need to worry.
I was that guy.
Right, I was that guy.
I slept on the pool.
Now I'm like, but my point is, so that helps, in my mind, with
Reduces the
retention, because, with retention too, because they're like, there's a little bit of
They're engaged.
thrill, they're engaged, and your head is there.
Yeah.
Right?
It's a culture.
And it's kind of like, snow plowing. I used to snow plow. Used to hate snow plowing, not because I hated the act of the snow plowing, but it was you couldn't predict. So you tell me now at my stage, it's either I sit at home with my wife and dogs watching Hoarders, or I go to the firehouse.
Watching Hoarders.
Watching Hoarders there, but it's the wife and dogs. But my point is though, is that it's a scheduled activity and I can, box it's not for everybody, but I'm saying that if you have facilities, at least there's the options for it. If you don't have the facilities, there isn't. But if you have a couple of bunks and a toilet and shower there, but
We don't have a shower.
you don't have a shower.
We don't have a shower. They took it out.
And
Before my
that
time.
space.
Well,
Because nobody used it. Now we're like, man, we need a shower.
well,
It's weird how these things just.
you don't have like a decon or anything there?
Yeah, I watch stations.
Oh, geez.
Really?
Okay, I don't want to belabor you to be here. It's almost past 9:45. But I don't want you to leave if you still have things you want to throw out there. So where are we? Mike?
Around.
You're asking me if I'm ready to go?
Yeah.
Well said.
I can go all night.
I won't say anything else. No, I'm.
Robin?
Thank you for putting up with me.
Karen?
I'm good.
Anybody on Zoom at all? Anything from the audience? Okay, so let's wrap up here. As soon as I get that information from the fire department on the graphic updates and the tables for the target features, they will go out to you. Working on chapter narratives for 2, 5, and 6. They should be out to you before the next meeting. And we'll take these things from your notes tonight and start to put a few of them at least onto a matrix. The big things, the things that might be obvious, I'll put on the matrix for you, and we'll start with that, and you either confirm that, change it, and then we go from there. So again, we have to have this report in some kind of a finalized format by the first meeting in February, because the second meeting on the 22nd of February, you have to kind of rubber stamp it. And then I'm going to turn around and whatever the supervisor wants in terms of copies, or there's typos, or there's a few more edits, I'll take care of those. We've got to get that in their hands by March 1st. We're not going to be late on that, not into the extension they graciously granted us. So please get back into this from the holiday break and think about these things, take a look at stuff when it comes, consider it, and feel free to jot notes, whatever brings you prepared to keep plugging along on it the next meeting.
Are you gonna put this in more of a tableized format?
I'm gonna take, Bonnie's got minutes, right? And I'm gonna take these things, the highlighted ones that we talked about, where they may be able to show you an improvement or make an advance on a matrix of the 4 types of jurisdictions that are available to us and how they interpret in those. Where there can be an improvement in a change of jurisdiction, I'll make a note. Where there is a blank, we'll know that that jurisdiction doesn't make any difference.
Same criteria apply to negative effects.
If when we get done with looking at improvement opportunities, you think there are some negatives affiliated with any of them, they need to be vocalized because there may be something that we just don't want to consider because of it. I don't know. Maybe there is. And we're not, I mean, I'll send you that matrix from the report, but we're not a city. There's no opportunity for us to be a city. So there's the city, village, cities off the table, village, within the town, fire protection district or a joint district, which is village in a district. Coming together as one.
So to summarize what you just said, pretty much it's either keep things the way they are, or have a townwide district.
No,
Is there another option I'm not seeing?
there's other options. The town can decide it wants to contract with another department.
Oh, I got you, right.
Okay.
Mentioned that already.
Um,
But I mean, keeping it in-house, so to speak.
yeah, if you don't want to make any changes, everything is status quo, and where you want to make improvements, you'd have to look at whether that is speaking with the village, or the district, or the town board for the fire protection district. I mean, there's gonna be an authority, there's a jurisdiction involved here. It's not just two departments, it's two departments, three jurisdictions. Where there's ability to make improvements that could juggle the department configuration and or the jurisdiction configuration, you know. And that's up to you, whatever you think is needed and however best it might fit into jurisdictional framework.
And the focus really resides on the fire protection district, the town's.
Well, the town put
portion.
this together
Right.
because both departments said we don't have enough staff. So the town indicated that it would be willing to receive recommendation from the committee if there are changes that are necessary, what they might be, and see how the town could help.
We I know we want to go, but just by, let's say an employee, we know how much an employee would be, 40-hour, 42-hour week, whatever. Average employee benefits, salary, et cetera, it's a number. 5,000, 90,000, I don't know. And if we knew that or had an idea, in other words, if you take your department, say how much is what is your employee cost per person? Okay. And then you said, okay, we might need 6 people. And then we could take that number, plug it into what the tax base is, and then show what a rate increase would be, because that's kind of where this is where the boat is sailing. And at least we can, well, I think it is, well,
I mean,
how about
if
this?
people want to hire,
Yep.
that's the boat is sailing in that
Oh,
direction.
okay, maybe misspoke. If we're headed towards that harbor, maybe we should know what lies in the harbor before we get there. In other words, if we thought we need 6 employees and they're 100,000 apiece, and there's this, and then we look at the tax rate, or, the people, and we go, this is what it means to every household in the town. That, I think, might help shape a little bit. If you look at that and go, oh my God, it's gonna quadruple the tax rate, everybody's gonna fall on the ground twitching. And if they go, well, it's an X%, and that is palatable to, to the committee as a thought, but then you could give that out to the town and say, here's what this model looks like. And then the town could say, the board or in the district can go, well, this kind of feels right. And then they could float that to the community and then go, are you folks on board or not? And here's what it really means. Instead of just saying, yeah, I'm all on board. And then all of a sudden it's like twice what
And
everybody
if
thought it
you,
was.
if you want to get to that level of detail, if you do, I mean,
Yes.
let's say we're gonna talk 6 people, 3 in each department, or a total of 3, whatever you
Right.
decide.
Right.
Okay, and then you have to assign that to a department. Right now, there's 2 departments. And so based on who you assign it to, like 1 over here and 2 over there, or 1 over there and 2 over here, then that would go to their jurisdictions. So for the village department to hire, that would go to the village. For the district to hire, that would go to the fire district. Again, it's got the fire protection district.
That's
out
what
of
the
it.
administration statement saying.
Yeah,
Right, I'm saying if the, but again, that might drive a change in the administration.
so you have to ascribe your employees to a jurisdiction, to a department, or to the departments, so that we know how that would play out with the cost center for the employment.
For specific benefits, wages.
Yeah, so what does it cost to hire a civil service firefighter for the package of finances, salary, benefits, the whole 9 yards?
Exactly.
What is it?
And I think what you're saying is it 2 cents a thousand, or is it $20 a thousand?
This is what I'm saying is then,
What you're saying is.
is that if you knew it was 20
Yeah.
and you were on board with 20, how do you get to 20? Is, yeah, right? But I don't know if it's 20 or I don't know the number.
Well, what you have to do then is back up and say, in the town of Mendon geography, regardless of the department, we feel we need 6 full-time civil service firefighters. They cost X.
Yes,
The total cost is X.
perfect, exactly. And that translates to your household. Why?
Well, we have to know the jurisdiction first, to understand how it translates, David, because
Well, we could project.
No, I'm not,
Village
you
because
gotta do a
let's-
projection there about what that costs.
well, if you know how much it costs per person and you know you need that many people, that would be the total cost of those 6 people. Now tell me what the jurisdictions are, so we know how to figure that into their budget.
Okay,
And then it's in their budget, we know what it can translate to cost per thousand, rate per thousand.
if it stays the way it is, I'm saying is that if
Yeah,
you
then
said,
You have to tell us where the cost center is. Is it one jurisdiction?
I
Or is it still
understand, what
gonna
I'm
be-
saying is always that you could model it in the different.
We can model it for
administrations.
the district. We can't model it for the village because we don't know what the village is gonna do with the fire contract for the town of Mendon.
Well, I think you might have to make the assumption.
We can
So
assume
that we
based on
can use it.
currency, but that's all we can assume.
No, right, but I'm saying is that information then is helpful to a recommendation is
Yeah.
what I'm saying. In
Yeah,
other words,
but
you
you-
ask me, should I recommend, or not you. You're saying is, member of the committee, are you recommending 6 full-time people? And I go, sure, but I have no idea what that means because I don't know what the numbers are. Right? That's what I'm saying is I don't know really, while I think it's right, once I see the numbers in front of me, I looked at hardwood floor today. It was $16 a square foot. It was the best stuff I ever saw, but guess what? I put it back.
All right,
So
so
my point is that,
hypothetically, it's
until-
150 per person.
right,
That's $450,000
right. Well,
for 3 people. Times 2 is $900,000 a year.
perfect. So,
Okay, so now you tell, you figure
mhm.
where those people need to be deployed. Do they need to be in 2 fire departments?
And
I mean, we
I
have,
guess you have to model it in the different 2 fire departments or 1, but you have to at least model it so you can see if there is an advantage, if there's 2 or 1, et cetera. Right? You have to
Okay.
model them in both.
we can model it in
Right.
both.
It doesn't have to be to the penny. It's more of just a gut feeling of what it means.
Well,
Because we,
those are your numbers. I mean,
Right.
Anthony, am I off?
you know,
Yeah, you're a little high.
I was.
A little high. By the
You're
time.
quite,
we
you're
get to
significantly high.
2024,
By 2024. Gotcha.
We're in 23 right now.
Well, I don't think you're gonna,
Well, of
What
course,
is your number?
where do I get my number?
No, what is your number?
Of how much I made?
No.
no, no, I'm asking what you-
Yeah.
Be an average salary.
You want me to? I can-
On a not round number, I'm gonna say 130.
So what we had started to formulate with some of the village current benefits and a projected wage that would be attractive. I have it at about 94,000 a firefighter.
I think you're low.
Is
You have-
That's starting, and I would say that would probably with how contracts for union firefighters work, that would probably increase 25% in 5 years
well, but it would increase because
of steps.
of steps.
Yeah.
You know, so the 90, the number you gave is salary benefits,
Yeah.
et cetera, et
Yeah,
cetera.
but what are you,
Vacation.
what are you including in benefits?
I'm including your hourly rate, I'm including vacation, including New York State retirement contribution, healthcare, workers' compensation, and insurance, and New York State disability.
And sick time, and social security benefits, and insurance. So by the
Paid
time,
family leave.
by the time you get, by the
Some of
time you
these
get done, you're probably somewhere between 120 and 130, roughly.
But Buffy, I've been out of it for a while.
You know,
So I don't know that number, so it's good to know that number.
okay,
And then you can say, well, then obviously 100 people would be way too much money, right?
well, this
You know what
is,
I'm saying?
but
And
I understand that you want a number, I understand that you want to put, we're able to financially get to some kind of estimate. So that will help understand where we might go with
I'm
modeling.
thinking, my thought to boil it down is each taxpayer is going to contribute to that, whatever the administration model might be. What does it look?
We can tell you right now, based on the budgets from the village and the district, what that would add to it. Because we know what the village budget is and we know what the district budget is. So
Right,
if
but
you
I-
had 3 people and you used the figure of 120,000, that's $360,000 for a year.
Right.
For the village,
Mhm.
360,000 for the district, which is a little bit less than the district
And
levies
budget,
now.
yeah.
It's more than the village.
So so then I go.
So
further.
that's like,
What is
2
that tax rate per thousand or whatever now? So it would double that, this.
probably like 75% of your budget. So if you figured 75% more, you would know what the tax
Right.
would be.
That's
If
what
you
I-
figured a little more than double to the village, you would know what the tax rate would be.
Would be good to know that rate though. I mean, the villages in the fire protection district is quite a bit lower than.
0.67 and it was 0.68 for the town. for
Okay,
the
so they
fire
are
protection.
pretty low. I thought they were a little bit different.
They're a little bit different because when the town goes to levy and the county assesses the tax rate, it changes a little bit from what you do because you calculated on the previous fiscal year. And the town or the county is putting the rate on for the current fiscal year for the town. So it's a little different, but it's 0.67, I think, this year, and 0.68 was the levy to the. It's like 0.689 something and 0.678 something. So it's very close, but it's not the same. But it would more than double for the village. Which would mean in essence that it would double for the fire protection district.
What about the fire district?
About 75%, because I think you're at 400 and some. Just a little over 500.
6.
Six.
Yeah, I think it is.
608.
What is the rate for the fire?
1.1.
I'm-
1.1.
Sorry.
No, but that's what I'm getting at. is
75%.
If it doubled your budget and your rate was X, I'm trying to boil it down to what that means to your household and whether that's,
It means it doubles. If it doubles the budget. for
Yeah,
the
but I
village,
don't
it's gonna
know.
Double the rate for the taxpayers.
oh no, I get it doubles. I don't know what that equates to in dollars. I don't know what I spend on it, yeah.
Whatever you spend twice.
Right, but
I mean, for everybody, it's gonna be different, but on an average $200,000 house, I don't know what the tax bill was in the fire protection district.
that's.
$125, doing the math right at this time of night.
So we'll go to 250.
Okay, that's, so, and
I mean, and
that's
those
exactly
numbers-
that's exactly what I was looking for. What does that mean to your household, and your household, and your household? It means $250 a year to bring, I want to say, bring us up to speed. I'm not trying to be, I'm just to get us to accomplish what originally fire departments came to the town to assist. Does that make sense? And maybe it's short term. I don't know if that's a long-term solution. I mean,
But once you do it, you can't undo it.
well, exactly. So that's why I'm saying, is it the long-term solution?
It
And
has
it
to be.
is a
Well,
continuing escalation.
Yeah.
And it is, right?
Now, can that be more equitably distributed across the geography? If you need 3 in each department, might you only need 5 if there was 1 department? And if there was 1 jurisdiction, then we would be paying equitably, because if you hike the fire district by 75% and you double the village and the town fire protection district, you know, we're still way out of whack like we are now. So with 1 department, 5, 6 employees,
I couldn't agree more. But you see, to my point is, when you pick out your pick, which you go with a number of them, you decide employees, you decide a number of employees, then you go to the administration and say, well, then how do we make this most equitable and cost effective to do it? I don't think you'd figure out the administration first and then make staffing fit.
but, and understand, it's not the only thing that's at play, is the staffing. There are other things that will be benefited by these different opportunities. So if you take that, hiring people, and you put it across all of those aspects, village, protection, district, joint district, you get into different financial situations because of the structure of each one. So the cost can be equitably distributed, or it can be disparate like it is now. To keep the same structures, you can still hire people, the village can hire people, the district can hire.
Townwide, the taxable assessment is about, in round numbers, is $950 million. So you can do the math from there, divide by 1,000. Use that, whatever number it is, if there was a hiring, as to how many people, how much per person. Grand total.
Okay, so we'll look at that and we'll come up with like a narrative, a description, so that we can share that back with all of you to take a look.
Because I think that's going to give you a number that, like I said, is it 2 cents a thousand, or is it 20?
I just want to know if I'm in the right, should I be in this restaurant?
Yeah.
You know, I gotta look at my pocket to find dinner here.
Are
That's,
we doing dishes?
are we, you know, are we gonna sneak out? You know, that's exact, that's all I'm saying is
And we
that
can do that.
that really is, it helps me to think that if I was to recommend to the town individual that this is a good way to go, that I'm not some crazy overburdening thing that I'm asking the town to then try to pass on to the people who live here. Like,
That's, they need to be work for the state. For the-
yeah, how many billions and trillions do you want?
Okay, get that grant.
We're
Yeah,
not
okay,
putting it. Okay.
okay,
All right.
thank you for.
Anything else? All right, well, thank you all. Appreciate our balcony seating always. And thank you, committee members.